statements. So if I'm also looking for a therapist, I need to gauge if you got the ability to hold this space karmically when I break down this molestation I went through, when I tell you I've been raped 15 times, the type of things that we hear in these spaces, as somebody who's seeking out a therapist, you got to understand what they karmic transmutation for you game looks like. You got to understand or ask yourself the questions that you will need to ask them to figure out, are they going to be able to have a cushy landing space when you do divulge this information that you may not have never told anybody in your life, not even your mother, your father. This is your first time getting this karma and this trauma off your chest. You got to investigate if they have the space and the capacity to do what Paramahansa's guru did in that moment and hold that karma for you. My nigga, everything is love. That on anything I love. Yeah.
Peace, beloved.
Everywhere.
It's an average exchange between a married couple. She in Hades, burning up.
Combusting.
I'm in Antarctica, cause she hot. Freezing. But she was
over here with a sweater on.
I just threw my sweater to the side. So
I still sweat.
And she got an excuse right now. She was just ripping and running, getting everything together. But
yeah,
even
but
when she ain't,
still,
this is the norm. How y'all deal with that? Who controls the thermostat in y'all households? We would like to know. Put that in the comment section.
Yeah, that's a valid question, because
nobody controls it over here. We just go to war. She turn it on. I come right behind her, turn it off. Then she turn it on, and it works.
A silent war? Is that what it is?
A little bit.
Yeah, right.
A little bit. A tolerable silent war. We get to get a little bit of our aggression out. When I hit that motherfucking off, I hit that shit hard as I cursed, my bad. When I hit that off, I hit it mad hard. We gonna bleep that out, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I hit mine hard too, especially in the middle of the night when you sleep and you don't have like a care in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's hot, but you sleep and I'm suffering, so I can't wait to hit it while you sleep.
But then I wake up in the middle of the night to go pee, and I'm damn near catatonic. So you get me too.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay. How you feel now? You still need this?
No, I think I'm good to go.
Shout out to one of our favorite albums, Miles Davis. Kinds of Blue. If you never been into jazz and you don't know the power of jazz, get this album and go straight to Blue and Green. One of my favorite songs ever. That was neither here nor there.
No, that matters. All right.
You can introduce.
Cleo, go sit down.
Go sit.
Go sit down.
Sit. Sit.
No, go sit down.
Not in front of the camera.
Cleo.
There you go. Go to your spot.
She just had to walk through.
Go to your spot.
Okay. No, go sit down. Go.
Go sit.
Go sit down.
Sit.
You already went outside and had
Good
fun.
girl. Sit.
Good
Off.
job.
Good girl. Off. Off.
Go ahead.
Don't be defiant. Off. Off.
Thank you.
Good girl.
Good job.
Good girl.
She definitely took a deep breath. Like, I don't want to do this shit.
And don't come at me in the comments talking about, don't yell at Cleo. I'm the father in the house. It got to be some masculine dominance in here to some degree. She appreciates it. She respects it. Let me do my job. Thank you, y'all. I love Cleo. Cleo loves me.
Facts. You have a beautiful relationship with all the animals.
Facts.
All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of God, It's Me Again. I am Candyss Love.
It's your boy, Brickcitibuddha. I try to do the same thing you did the last episode.
What was that?
And try to clean these with no.
Yeah.
Got to put some haw on it. There we go. You having flashbacks?
Okay.
Y'all should have saw what happened after the
No, y'all
last
shouldn't
episode.
have saw. They shouldn't have saw that.
Some furniture moving. Matter of fact, let me not sit too close to the edge because there's some spots here now. Not those type of spots, but you know, your oil and all that.
You don't have to explain in depth to them.
You're right.
All right, y'all. So this is the first episode that I'm going to lead. We actually recorded an episode yesterday that I led and kind of butchered.
It was mostly my fault. I've been running on E.
But what did you say when I said that?
What you mean? That
When
it was
I
my
said
fault?
no, when I said I butchered, what was your response? Because it felt like a giggle, and then well, kinda. Was that your response? Do I
After
have
the
to roll?
episode?
No, just now when I said I butchered it. You said,
Nah, I'm taking responsibility. That was on me. You
okay.
ain't butcher nothing. You was great.
Oh, thank you.
The only thing you didn't butcher, but so I learned. We all learn. Well, we both learn from various different sources. So when I went to tonight's conversation, that's part of why we started to get back to this. I mean, we knew we needed to just honor this baby.
Yeah.
Of God Is Me Again podcast, which we hadn't even renamed at that point. We just knew we needed to get back to it. So when I was on tonight's conversation, I picked up a lot of tricks to the trade, and one of which is we know what we want to talk about. We've kind of always just freestyled it. We've had notes in our phone. But one of the things they do for you podcasters out there, y'all may want to pick up on this as well, is to just have a flow for the conversation. Some ancillary questions and statements to keep the conversation going that we usually have right here. So you did a great job in that episode, but I asked you about 50 times that day. You got the flow? You got the flow? You got yeah, I got it. And then we get here and she's like, so we're going to freestyle, and I'm tired and I ain't had no scruples left in me. So
High school Candyss came out. That's how I made my way through high
Yeah.
school. I freestyled it.
yeah, so I ended up butchering the episode. So we're giving it another attempt. I take responsibility.
That works for me.
I
I'm
bet
not
it
mad at
does.
that.
Bet it does.
I'm not mad at that. So we're going to start off with my word.
There we go.
Because I keep forgetting about my words. So I actually learned a new word the other day. And
Is it the one we discussed?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a fire word.
So this word is ad hominem. And it says it's an adjective of an argument or reaction directed against a person rather than the position they are maintaining. So an example would be when you and I have a disagreement. Instead of sticking to the points of the disagreement, you start attacking me as a person.
You know.
Which has,
You know.
no.
I'm loopy, y'all. Y'all got to
Which
excuse me.
has everything to do with,
Yeah.
you know, deflecting
Yeah.
from the actual topic of conversation. So hopefully y'all can use that one. Ad hominem. All right. So today we're going to talk about therapy. Thank you.
Good getting back to your words. I respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still screenshot them. Every time I see one, I screenshot them. But I don't think that I've been implementing them like I suggested or like I planned. All right. So, yeah, we're going to get into therapy today, which I think is beautiful to start off with something that's actually true for me. Something that's been coming up for me is, I guess, every time I think about crying, I end up crying about high school. How my friends kind of left me in high school.
You dream about it.
I dream about it. I mean, multiple times a week. That's my only reoccurring dream is how my friends abandoned me in high school. And I never graduate high school. So reoccurring dream that happens all the time. But the past few years, but particularly the past few months, every time I think of high school friends, like I can feel it now that I'm even saying it. Every time I think about high school friends, I want to cry. And today I was driving, listening to Kendrick Lamar. It's not enough. What is it? And something made me think about my high school friends. And I just broke down crying.
Was there any connection and why that song did it? Or it was just the moment?
It was just a moment. I just thought about somebody that I recently saw on social media and just broke down crying. I mean, no real connection to them, but they were somebody that I went to school with. That wasn't even one of my friends. They just reminded me of high school. The other day in the room, I started crying about, friendships in high school. And so I guess this topic is so apropos.
Come on now.
Because the healing process is not linear. And a lot of people will ask questions, when will I be healed? And what's important to acknowledge is as you evolve, certain wounds will present themselves for an opportunity to be acknowledged and witnessed again. And it doesn't mean that there's work that you need to do in the past, but just an emotion that's asking to be acknowledged and witnessed. And I recognize in high school, I never had a proper ceremony of ending. Even though I graduated high school, and even in my reoccurring dreams, I never graduate high school. It's kind of showing that there's emotion that's still stuck in high school that's asking to finally be processed and released and acknowledged, because in high school I didn't have the tools to use the terms depression, anxiety, isolation, neglect, and abandonment. Those words weren't in my wheelhouse, but they are now. And so now when those emotions come up, I just give myself permission to just cry. And I think that's all my inner child, my young adult self, is asking to do, is just to be witnessed and acknowledged for the pain that she went through in high school.
And not to cut your wisdom, but when we've talked about the 5 communication highways, and that, it's not enough to just present a gripe to your partner or whoever it is. You got to let them know what you want them to do with that information.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to run through them all, but the main highway you usually want, it ain't even apology. It don't be I be trying to do extra credit work when I give you the explanation. You're like, I don't want all that. I just want acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So it's apropos right back at you that your inner child is still looking for that for the most part.
Yeah, right. Just the acknowledgement.
And one more thing to what you said too. I believe is Papa G. Muji is really popular these days. If y'all don't know who Muji Baba is, y'all could check him out. Teddy bear type of yogi, black dude, Jamaican damn near accent, long locks. Just a beautiful spirit. He helped me in my development and leveling up, just watching his videos for years. And his teacher, Papa G, used to always talk about the fact that there is no past. That even when you conjure a moment from the past, it's happening in the present moment.
Yeah.
So we'll have these conversations, and people, I know we're going into the therapy topic, and people will say, well, just leave that in the past, or you got to be stronger than continuously going back to that. But the mind field is so prevalent and holds so much information. Like you said, you're not even really cognizant outside of just seeing that person of how all that came to surface, just riding the car, listening to Kendrick Lamar. Right? So really there is no past to tell somebody, well, that's in the past. You shouldn't have to worry about that no more. It's still occurring in the present moment. And me and you was listening to, one of our little esoteric videos maybe like 2 weeks ago, when I had listened to and I wanted you to check out. And you remember what they said, that when we even go back to a past moment, our mind is kind of restructuring the idea of the moment. It's not even an accurate depiction of the past. So it's low key a new moment that didn't happen how you thought it did when you first experienced it. So it's a lot deeper than just people continuously rehashing things that they should have gotten over. It's fresh and new every time you visit the experience.
Yeah, because now we can just go ahead and get into the topic of therapy. I think there are a lot of misnomers about therapy.
Absolutely.
And they think that when they go to therapy or, just attempt to embark on the healing journey in general, that they will have to revisit the past. And they don't really understand why just acknowledging things from childhood, young adulthood, why it's necessary and how it serves a purpose in their present moment so they can extract necessary things and connect the dots to who they are now and why they are now. Do you have anything to say to, I guess, the misnomers, the misconceptions, the fears that are really going about that prohibit people from being able to go to therapy?
Yeah, it comes up. I think I mentioned before, at this point, I done worked with 1,600 plus different people from all different walks of life. I see it a lot when I work with men, because you talked about that linear approach to healing and men being full of masculine energy, and we are very linear in our approach. A lot of times they don't see the connection or the correlation. A lot of times they haven't had therapy at all. Usually it's their woman or a mom or aunt saying, I'm paying for the session, he gonna show up. And they get in there and you could tell they're not really open energetically.
Yeah.
But then I start to talk and I tell them from rip, I'm gonna be myself. I'm still a hood dude, and they can relate to that a lot of times. And before you know it, we halfway through the session and tears is falling. Big, burly, grown men that you would never expect to come to their first session and open up that way. I don't expect it. as I walk them through the emotion and then we kind of come out of it, I got like a certain technique for how to do that. They'll tell me like, bro, I ain't never expect to come in here and release like this. But with that linear approach, a lot of it is you feel like I've gotten over this because you can function. And when we get into the different koshas and the different layers of consciousness, yes, on Annamaya kosha, the physical body and the mind makes up Annamaya kosha. Kosha means level, layer, or plane of consciousness, and we got 5 main ones. So yes, you could function maybe on Annamaya kosha. The body is cool, right? You go to the gym, you throw up 300, 400 pounds. On a mind level, you're able to go to work and conduct business as a human being. But on that deeper level, Pranamaya kosha, the energy body, you ripped up, right? On Manomaya kosha, the emotional body, a deeper level, it's chaos there. And the deeper you go down, which is a beautiful aspect of therapy, it helps direct you to those levels, you start to realize functionality at the surface is not enough. Reminiscing of Kendrick Lamar, turn the TV off. It's a lot more that's necessary to maintain balance and equilibrium. You could function off Annamaya kosha, that top level, for 20, 30 years, and then 35 come, 38 come, 40 come, and we call it a midlife crisis. And everything hits the fan, and we wonder why around those ages, everything hits the fan because you've been thinking functionality on the surface is enough.
That's perfect. I think that's a great perspective because I notice a lot of what happens is the average person will feel like they're high functioning, or they will even go to a therapist or maybe a counselor or a life coach, and especially with addiction, they'll say things like you are high functioning.
People love that term now.
They do. And the reality is you are a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
That's the archetype of a shapeshifter. I know because I damn near wrote the book on it.
Yeah.
It's a person being able to hide in plain sight. So when I went through my addiction to alcohol, nobody had any clue that I was an alcoholic because I knew how to hide in plain sight. I knew how to show you whatever mask I wanted you to see. I knew how to escape. I knew how to cope, and I knew how to defend myself. So when I go into environments, nobody even has the ability to trigger any wounds because I'm conscious of what I'm actively hiding. But what happens to the person that isn't conscious of what they need to evolve through? They'll enter relationships and people will trigger those wounds, and they will say either that's just how I am, it's not me, it's you. But what'll also happen is they'll end all relationships. They'll push all the people to the side that try to highlight that there's something happening here that you may need to have somebody help you unpack and work through. And when they disregard all the people that say that, they'll get into their midlife crisis. They'll get into their 50s, 60s, and 70s and finally say, hey, I actually don't even know myself.
Facts.
Because you've been shape-shifting and wearing whatever mask that doesn't allow a person to actually see you for all these years. And it's always better to do the work now than to put it off intentionally so long that the time where you're supposed to rest and just enjoy your life, now you're having to unpack all the things that you've intentionally avoided. There's nothing wrong also with being older and still having to go through these things because as we get older, we still gonna have to unpack who we are until we learn how to become nobody.
A couple things to that too. It's almost the approach that you'll hear a lot of people in business take where they say, just go super hard for like 5 to 10 years so you can enjoy the rest of your life, right? Use your 20s or whatever it is to be able to put yourself in that position. Same kind of applies to the other aspect of ourselves, which is the emotional and the energetic bodies. And a lot of times we'll wait to get to the 30s, the 40s, and 50s. And you think about what's happening in those ages, you know, your energy levels is depleting. You got more responsibility. You got family now. When you are in those early stages of your life, it's a lot of space and opportunity for you to dig into yourself that won't be there as you get older. You're still going to have to do the work to some degree, or you can just succumb to what it is and crash out or whatever it may be. But if you plan on waiting until you come around the curb and getting your life right first, now you got to maintain life and all the different things you've acquired while trying to do this healing work. And as far as the shape-shifting, before we move on into what you got, I feel like so many of us adopt that behavioral pattern of shape shifting, code switching. Code switching is more so to do with black people in our culture and, you know, having to navigate in corporate America, white man's world, whatever you want to call it. But with all this switching, you also create double, triple, quadruple work. Because when it is time to start to heal, now it's not just the original persona that's at bay. Now you got all these other personas that have real life forces of their own that you also got to figure out and accommodate for it. Each different form you shape into is going to need its own therapy.
Period.
You know what I'm saying? So not only do we wait super long to start to do this work, now you're doing it for a legion of different personas within yourself as opposed to just that person that came out of your mother's womb.
Man, that's perfect because I'm gonna recommend a book to y'all, A Symphony of Selves. It's a book that speaks about multiple personalities, but they want to no longer use the word disorder to acknowledge that we all have multiple personalities, and how through all religions for however many years have all acknowledged this. You'll see multiple heads on beings, and it's not to be demonic, it's to show the multiple personalities of the being, and every personality has its own agendas, its own intentions, its own goals, its own likes and dislikes. Some of the personalities don't even like each other, and some of the personalities don't get along. So when you say that one of those personality needs therapy for different things, that is very true. So it's important to know these things about ourselves and do that level of self-discovery. So I think that was a great point.
Absolutely.
I want to get into how to choose a therapist, because what I recognize a lot lately is a lot of people feel as if they are called to do therapy work, but they'll also say things, but I have, what's it called when they don't feel like they're up to, they have the capacity to do something, but they want to? Not savior syndrome.
One of my terms?
No, it's a regular term. When they just don't have the confidence to do something, but they want to.
I'm not sure.
It'll come to me.
You, yeah.
But basically, a person will say that they feel called to it, but they're afraid to do it, and they feel like there's like a force.
Oh, imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome.
I got you.
And so typically when I hear a person say that they have imposter syndrome, it tells me that it may not actually be time yet. That your spirit may be asking you to accumulate a little bit more wisdom, more information, and more time before you start guiding people and holding their souls and their hearts and their traumas in your hand. Because there are so many people who are called.
And just for clarity, not to cut you, you mean imposter syndrome for the therapist. The therapist has
the people who want to hold space and be a therapist.
Got you. Okay.
And so because there are so many people who feel called to do the work, they may not be able to understand that they are trying to go into the work prematurely, which will cause a lot of therapists to have good hearts and good intentions, but they may not be fully equipped to hold the trauma and the souls and the karmic debt and the karma of all the people that they're coming in contact with. So some people will say, oh, I got a bad therapist, or I didn't like my therapist. And what they're recognizing is sometimes the therapist may have gone to school, but don't have all the wisdom yet. Sometimes they may have gone to school and have a lot of beautiful information, but they may not have the emotional connection yet because they've gone into their career probably prematurely. So I want to talk about how a person can know how to choose the right therapist for them. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so a few things to what you just said, and it feels like we're not going to go to the same direction we went last time.
No.
But I will bring up, without getting into the whole story and all of that, they got your YouTube video. They can check out your reaction. But I will bring up the conversation with 19 Keys and, how you say her name? Raquel? Raquel, who's a very well-known therapist. She just burst onto the scene, got a lot of viral videos. And one of the things that they did bring up is how can, people, why would people go to these therapists, and these therapists is trying to hold space when they life is in disarray, or they constantly going through things, right? And it's almost like a backwards perception I feel like in looking for a quality therapist, like if I wasn't in this field, knowing what I know now, I would actually be looking for a therapist, especially if they showing up online and being open about their lives. I would look for somebody that's going through something. Because I understand now, as the conduits that we are just in life at large, and the podcasts and the retreats and all the different things we do. But as far as therapy, we are vocal about in our sessions with the people we work with. We're vocal in the public setting as well as what we go through, as far as what we go through, because being conduits, it's almost like a filtration system. As we go through things beyond all the book knowledge we already have that we could easily present to people that we work with, each new thing that we go through, being that we so open to healing, growing, and evolving, as you say, as we pull it in, accept it, are open to it, and vet it and process it, now is new wisdom for us to hand over to our clients. So I don't necessarily want somebody that's in this cushy, safe space all the time, as they also kind of criticize, safe spaces is for the weak. We'll probably get into that too. But as far as a therapist, I want somebody that's going through something pretty consistently. And I can see that they're able to not only handle it themselves, but they can transmute that pain as they process it, come out of it, and filtrate it into the wisdom I'm going to need from them. So that's something I would actually be looking for. If I was in a first session with a therapist, I would want to know some of their story as well, which I usually offer to my clients the first time. This ain't just about me guiding and teaching you. I'm going to let you know and be transparent about how I got to some of this wisdom through my own SHIT.
I think that's a great point, and that's exactly where I'm going. Because the thing is, I believe when you go to school to be a professional in some way, they kind of teach you to withhold that information. So the client doesn't either take on your stuff, or it doesn't blur the lines between client patient. And then subconsciously, I think it also plays on power roles. I'm the one that's
I'm the
power.
practitioner, yeah.
And you're the one that's coming to me. But I have a chapter in my book that's called Spiritual Background Checks. And it's basically to teach people how to be more conscious of the people that they allow to hold their heart, the people that they allow to hold their trauma. And so just like you, what I would recommend is when you go to a therapist, instead of just using the entirety of your first session to vent, share all of your things, ask intentional questions. Ask about who you are speaking to. Ask about the things that they are working through. Ask about the things that they have gone through. Because if you have a therapist that's just like, I got it all figured out, then I know that you're not actively working on things that I can actually relate to. And so that's why on my Instagram account, I put videos and photos of my entire healing journey. Luckily, I was blessed to document and have the thought to document my journey. So I post pictures of when I was in my addiction, when my acne was crazy, when I looked like a completely different person. So it gives them the safety of knowing that I'm not just telling you this information. I've actually lived this information. And on top of living all of this information and this wisdom, I have the documentation to show you and prove it. So check out my story, check out who I am. And if that resonates with your spirit, then feel free to book a session with me. I think that's a healthier way to go about vetting therapists or anybody that you allow to hold space for you in a sacred and professional manner, to ask who they are, because there are many people who are well-intentioned that just really want to help others, but may not have gotten all the wisdom just yet that has the capacity to guide you, and may unintentionally misguide you and give you the information that doesn't really resonate with your heart and will deter you from wanting to go find another therapist, because ultimately all roads will lead you back to you. It is your responsibility to take this extremely importantly and do your research before you give somebody that level of access to
And then there's also something to be said for the fact, like, if knowing what I know now, and if I was looking for a therapist, I mean, you my therapist, so
same.
I got a free therapist in the house. But I got to catch up on this. One of the things that we put into our schedule, our intimacy schedule is, my Thursdays is my little rub my peasy head day. And then part of Sunday, you wanted me to start to read Autobiography of a Yogi to you. We're going to pick books, but the first one is Autobiography of a Yogi, a book I would definitely recommend for my spiritualists out here, people who are in the midst of awakening. And it's by Paramahansa Yogananda. He's pretty much the first celebrity yogi in the States. He popularized what we call Kriya Yoga, which is a certain type of yoga. They call it the lightning path. It kind of expedites things. But without getting into all of that, there's a certain sect of the book where Paramahansa is studying under his guru. And they finally take this trip that he was trying to get his guru to take all of the young men in the ashram to. They wanted to go, I think, to Kashmir, India, something like that. And on the trip, he finally agreed to it, and on the trip, the guru becomes deathly ill, to the point it seems like he was not even going to make it through, and this is for like weeks at a time. But he needed his students to go back to where they from to handle some business for him. They didn't want to leave because they like, yo, you about to die. Paramahansa stayed with him, and pretty much he broke down to Paramahansa that what I'm experiencing right now is not my illness. You get to a certain level of guruship or guru nature where you have the ability, and this is, the yogic sector, right? But you have the ability to make the choice to take on other people's or communities' karma. But in you taking it on, you got to process that through your vessel. So right now, I'm making a choice to take on some of y'all karma because I see y'all strides, and certain things will set you back for lifetimes that I want to be able to see you to push through in this lifetime. So I'm going to be sick for the next month. It's going to look like I'm not going to make it, but I'm going to come out of this. And he did, right? Therapy is for that 60 minutes when you're working with not a real practitioner, but somebody who has the cojones energetically and emotionally to be able to process and take on your karma for 60 minutes, for 90 minutes. So if I'm also looking for a therapist, I need to gauge if you got the ability to hold this space karmically when I break down this molestation I went through, when I tell you I've been raped 15 times, the type of things that we hear in these spaces, as somebody who's seeking out a therapist, you got to understand what they karmic transmutation for you game looks like. You got to understand or ask yourself the questions that you will need to ask them to figure out, are they going to be able to have a cushy landing space when you do divulge this information that you may not have never told anybody in your life, not even your mother, your father. This is your first time getting this karma and this trauma off your chest. You got to investigate if they have the space and the capacity to do what Paramahansa's guru did in that moment and hold that karma for you.
That's such a great point, because even when I went to Peru and,
the shamans.
Yeah. We partook in like 12 ayahuasca ceremonies over, 6 years. And when the shamans see into your spirit and help clear out that debris along with the ayahuasca, they will also share when someone had so much trauma, so much, I guess, stagnant energy. They say most of our stagnant energy doesn't even come from trauma. Most of it comes from phones.
Wow.
Yeah. So like the first day of the ayahuasca experience, they're not even clearing out trauma. They're clearing out the trauma from the phones, which is crazy. But they'll express that during the day that they're so well equipped now that they're good to go during the day after a ceremony. But when there's someone who has so much trauma, you can hear them across the jungle vomiting, getting it out their system. And sometimes when a person has so much trauma, so much stagnant energy, they'll have to go to the shaman every day where they suck the trauma out of the person's head. No ayahuasca present in anybody's body. This is during the day, randomly. They'll come in for their session and they'll suck the trauma out of their head, and the shaman will instantly start to vomit and throw up.
Wow.
And so they're getting all of that, coming out of their nose, their eyes. So that point that you made is so good, because we need to make sure that the person we're speaking to, the therapist we're speaking to, has the ability to hold us and transmute what we're giving them in a proper way.
And also making sure that to some degree, that they're a pure enough vessel to invite into your trauma and karma. Because as soon as you give it to that therapist, they are not now part of your journey. They're now part of your genetic code. They now have a place in that trauma and karma just by hearing that out. And now you are open and susceptible to whatever their karma and trauma may be. So it's still an exchange. And I always tell my clients that I'm going to learn from you today. That's part of my mission, and low key, that's part of my, I guess, unconsciously selfish part of this exchange is we both going to learn, but you are also, even if I don't tell you anything about my journey in my life, I'm not part of yours. Mm-hmm. So understanding if this person is a pure enough vessel to, if I'm going to share this and this is going to be exchanged, what am I getting back on the other end? Just like our sexual exchanges. You may think it's just a casual one night stand, but now we are sharing energies and traumas and karmas as well. So that's part of it too.
Yeah, and I think that another part before we move on is therapists have to also have not some level of integrity, but mindfulness of what their experiences are. Because if you don't vet your therapist properly, if they're still doing so much work that they aren't conscious of how their wounds show up, conscious of how their perceptions, their perspectives show up, they may unconsciously and unintentionally project what they have experienced in the past onto you, and then tell you how to maneuver, give you advice based on the advice they wish they had, or based on the advice that they would have given to their past self. But that may not be the advice that's necessary for you. So when vetting the therapist, it's also important to just make sure that they have the ability to speak from an unbiased place, and they are conscious of who they are, what their wounds are, so they don't project them.
That's one of the first things I tell clients as well is I'm not here to tell you if you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not here to suggest what you're supposed to do with your life. That's not my place. I feel like I don't really have the autonomy to do that for any other being. I can say what I see. I can seek out and look for blind spots and potential blockages in how you may move. But me to tell you what to do, like you said, that's based on my template. What has worked for my template may be the complete opposite of what your soul is asking for. So, and I know part of, like, I guess more so traditional therapy is some of that exchange and maybe making suggestions. So I don't knock that either. If you feel called to more traditional therapy, maybe that's what your soul is signing up for. But that's another part of this conversation too. There are so many different forms of counseling and therapy, and what we do is more so intuitive and spirit-based. And with that, I'm doing my best not to get in the way of what spirit is trying to show you. I'm just trying to be a conduit and a directional path for you to be able to hear your own spirit in a more effective way. Right,
and we're definitely going to get into that too. So I want to ask, this is a 3-part question, and we can break it down, but I want to ask, is therapy even needed? Can a person heal without therapy? And what would you actually say therapy is for?
I would say no, a person can't heal without therapy. And that may sound crazy because we are so open-minded with so many different things. But again, therapy comes in many different forms.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a therapist during that 3 years of solitude. A traditional therapist in that 3 years of solitude. Therapy for me was going into meditation and going to the core of the wisdom. Now, I know everybody's not in a trajectory where that's where their soul is at, where they have the space and the time. You know, I'm half blind. I'm not going to work. I was barely getting any money to pay my bills, but I ain't have to do nothing else but just heal.
Right.
You put yourself in the same position where we was able to go get these keys and bypass kind of, I guess, the middleman of having a person be a therapist, but I was still getting therapy through the meditation, you know, through nature, through grounding, through the sun gazing. And that's part of the conversation too, because some people will say, well, I am grounding out, I am sun gazing, I am doing these other forms of therapy, but there still needs to be some direct form of being able to get different perspectives, different directions on how to see life, on how to navigate life. And like I said, I was able to go straight to the source of that, pull all that information out of my pain, and now give it to other people. But if you don't have that direct connection established yet, there does need to be some form of talk and listen therapy with somebody that has the ability to kind of show you like a coach. You got Michael Jordan, the greatest athlete of all time. Phil Jackson always says he was one of the most coachable players I ever coached. Same thing about Kobe. They got all the natural talent in the world, but they needed somebody outside of what they were doing to say, yo, you got to hit the elbow in the third quarter. Yeah. What you're doing right now with all your talent is not working. We all need that bird's eye perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like everyone needs therapy.
Absolutely.
And obviously there are different types of therapy, but there's so much happening within the body, the mind, the psyche, and metaphysically that we need guidance to learn how to maneuver through, learn how to mold and how to work through and how to heal through. And so I did go to therapy after the military because my military experience was so traumatic. And when I went into therapy, my therapist was like, okay, like you're really smart. And I'm like, yeah, I just need help in these areas. And then I think I went to her for a second session and she was like, Candyss, why are you here? And I was like, well, I'm depressed. I need guidance. And she said, no, you know exactly what you're doing. She's the one who gave me the confidence to start my own coaching. And she's the one that told me, you literally have all the answers. In some ways, you're using a lot of spiritual and metaphysical techniques and ideologies that she didn't have access to or know about. So in the therapy session, I was kind of teaching her, but that's where I also learned that it's not necessarily that we need to go to therapists to just learn about who we are. We kind of need them to help us reframe certain narratives.
Absolutely.
And so she kind of taught me there's a proper way to use therapy as opposed to going in, venting, and thinking they're going to say something to you that's just going to change your life and they're going to do the work for you. They help you reframe narratives. So when my cousin was killed in 2020, and at this time I was, 2 years sober, I had this idea that this is hard. I feel like I'm dying. I need to go see my therapist now so I don't relapse. And there was a guilt that I had that what if I would have been present in his life enough, I could have saved him. And all she responded back to me was, well, what if you were a part of his life? How could that have changed your life? How could that have altered your past? And she gave me enough questioning and reframing to where I didn't have to guilt myself anymore.
Facts.
So I could see that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And we all know that had I had been a part of his life, I may have been dragged into what he was doing as well. And it could have altered the trajectory of who I was supposed to be. So that therapy session just gave me the clarity that I needed. But it also empowered me because she said, Candyss, why are you here?
Right.
That told me you are your therapist.
Right.
Have faith in yourself. Have faith in your own guidance. And if at any point you need me to help you do a reframing or to help you connect some dots, then come back to me. But for now, why don't you go back home and learn how to be your own therapist? Because that's what I did. One of the other things that you mentioned is through silence and meditation and being in the forest and grounding. At some point, we are going to get into the other forms of therapy, but I think it's important to mention that when a person's like thinking that they can heal on their own without therapy or different forms of therapy, silence, meditation, and stillness, the reason why you didn't have to go to therapy, and my therapist basically told me, girl, get the hell on, is because in silence and meditation, the truth of who you are surfaces.
And the mind is exposed.
You can't run from yourself in silence. And so my husband was in the forest for hours, like 8 hours at a time, just
daily
meditating
for 3 years.
Exactly, just meditating and making that his job. Every day that I would wake up, I would do an hour of internal listening, which is just an hour of silence, and then jotting down what came up. You'd be surprised the amount of fears, the amount of traumatic experiences, the amount of memories that still hold so many emotions that haven't been processed. All of that comes up in those moments of stillness and meditation. So now you have the ability to become your own therapist because only you know who you really are when no one else is watching, who you are at the core of your being, and all of the shame, the guilt, the neglect, the addictive behaviors that you hold within your being, they're now all having a safe space to be properly exposed. So even if a person says they don't feel comfortable with going to therapy, you still have to take the path of doing self-discovery.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you want to
Yeah,
add to
yeah, a
that?
couple things to that, and just spring cleaning the sniffles. That's Tithel in the background. So if y'all hear a little sniffle here and there, and then she just opened up the door because
Yeah.
she probably ready to go to sleep. So
Yeah, that's my baby cat.
yeah,
She
no
has
doubt,
upper
she doing
respiratory
her
disease,
thing.
so leave her alone.
So the people that say I don't need therapy, I don't think it's a human being on this earth that has some level. Damn, I know it just came out on this earth.
What'd you say, Earth?
Earth, yeah. I don't think it's a human being on this planet that has some level of community that when they hit a rough spot, they're not calling an auntie, a cousin, a friend,
Yeah.
a mom, or dad. So we are engaging actively and consciously in a form of therapy every time you tell somebody about what old girl did or what old boy did or why they fired you at work. You are going into therapy every time you have one of these type of conversations. But the thing is, you're not going in there with a trained professional and expert that knows how to actually hold space for you, hold you accountable, deconstruct the narratives, right? You just giving it to your cousin and them and your auntie and them, and they don't really know what to do with it outside of telling you what's best for them. And a lot of times they're limited scope, not because they're not intelligent or haven't been through things. They haven't had to put in that 10,000 hours and being able to guide souls in this way and collecting the data, collecting the information. So we engage in therapy anyway. You might as well give this process to somebody that knows how to hold the space. And the term that you use, narrative. I think most of the work I do, and you could probably attest to this as a
Yes.
counselor, is deconstructing, helping people to deconstruct their narratives. There's a term in yoga, and my approach to yoga is spirit-based. I still infuse some psychology, philosophy, quantum mechanics, real inward vibes. All of that is mixed in there, right? It's probably the same for you. One of the things with yoga, because I am yoga forward as far as the modalities I've studied, you got a term called klishta. Klishta translates to a Sanskrit. It translates to the coloring of an experience. And then you got aklishta, which is the process of uncoloring these experiences. So usually when people come to me in initial sessions, before I even talk to them about what klishta and aklishta is, they got very heavy coloring. Their approach to money, their perspective of family, their perspective of relationship is inundated and is shaded and is colored with all these different experiences that have them holding a belief system that 9 times out of 10 is antiquated. It no longer resonates where they are in life, but they haven't taken the time to scrutinize. Does this still work? Is this still accurate?
Yeah.
Or is this just something I downloaded so young that it stayed with me as verity, as truth? And walking them through the process of not telling them it's not true no more, but asking the right questions, they get to the point where it's like, oh snap, this belief system is no longer accurate. And then being able to let go of the narrative, now you got all this open space to infuse new narratives that are accurate for right now. And you are no longer sending a vibration from that antiquated narrative into the grid, into the universe, which don't have a dog in the race. It's like, oh, you believe this? We're going to project more of that. So a lot of this also comes down to the storylines that end up getting planted into our subconscious mind, that a quality therapist is going to be able to sift out in you telling them your story and be able to have you replace those narratives.
Yeah, that's a great point, because how I really feel is it's up to you to be able to discern where you lose power, what you give your power away to, and where your power is taken away from you. And many people give their power away to the stories. Okay. So what you want to do?
To finish this statement, and we'll do a part 2 at another time. I think we good.
Okay. People give their power away to their stories. They give their power away to their narratives of suffering, and they give their power away to their beliefs. And so we started off the podcast basically speaking about how I cry when I think about my friends. And I also recognized today, actually, while I was driving, is that there is a narrative and a belief that I'm a bad friend. And so I think that the crying that surfaces is because I was neglected or not neglected, but abandoned in such a traumatic way by my friends, it left this notion of feeling unworthy of friendship and incapable of being a good friend. Like, even though I knew there was nothing that I did wrong, the inner child in me was still like, but why don't they want to be my friend? Like, why am I not good enough? Why they want to be everybody else's friend? And I love them. Like, I genuinely still pray for them. I still love them. So if there's a narrative that I'm not a good friend, how is that actually affecting my day-to-day life? How much power is going into this narrative that I'm not even conscious of? How much of my energy is going into this narrative of suffering and this belief and this story that I have no idea? The body uses 80% of its energy just to suppress emotional trauma. That means narratives of suffering and the emotions that are connected to those memories that live in those narratives. And so it's very important that we scrutinize our belief systems and make sure that they are up to date with who we are and what we actually believe, because I know that I'm not a bad friend, but there's still a version of me that would need therapy to understand where that narrative came from, why I still hold it, and to feel safe enough to know that she doesn't have to hold on to that anymore. Everybody has to do that work.
And real quick, you think it's going to pick up if I say something real quick?
I really don't know what that means. I think we have time.
Okay. So when you mention the narrative piece, as far as that particular narrative, the belief system, I call them source codes, that you was a bad friend. Without you being able to do the work to acknowledge that belief system, to challenge that belief system, to vet it and uproot it from the soil of your subconscious, that can look like, well, if the belief is I'm a bad friend, well, I need to overcompensate and be the best possible friend I could ever be. Which could turn into the behavioral pattern of doing way too much and savior syndrome and not being able to set boundaries because you are trying to prove to the storyline that I am a good friend. And now you got all this disarray spilling out and falling out through your life based on not being able to recognize the initial belief system. So people will be surprised in how many different ways these types of things that a quality therapist is going to be able to guide you to and through. You'll be surprised how much of your life and your decisions it affects, down to the type of food you eat, to the type of partners you select, to the type of jobs and careers you go after. People be in careers, when I work with them, and you could probably attest to the same thing, they, late 30s, 40s, and they put years into this career and they realize, I ain't never want to do this. Like you said, you felt in certain ways unprotected and unsafe, so you spent 17 years in the military and law enforcement. All of us
unconsciously, not even knowing that my wound was driving me to enter those career fields.
Exactly. So you start to see the roadmap and the blueprint of how your reality gets structured through things like therapy and counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just end it here as a part one. All right, y'all. So we're going to end it here as a part one of our therapy series. We're going to come right back and finish off with a part two. So y'all stay tuned. It will come out next week. You can check out my book, Remember Who the F You Are. What else? Follow our Instagram.
Retreat information coming for the one at the end of the summer. Now accepting clients, relationship counseling, one-on-one family and meditation mentoring. And we'll double back.
All right, y'all. Talk to y'all soon.
My nigga, everything is love, but that on anything I love. Yeah.
Peace, beloved.